Hi, this is Justin Garnett from basketmaker.atlatl.com. I was just recently asked a question online, which I thought was worth answering in a video. It was from Lucas0036, which asked what types of wood I like to use for atlatls and how to actually heat bend the wood. This is obviously two very natural questions. It hadn't occurred to me really that heat bending was something that would be puzzling. This is just because I've been doing it for so long. You know, it's one of those situations where you just sort of assume that everybody else knows what you know. So I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at both of those. This is actually a very interesting idea, and one that I've talked with a lot of people. My dog is contributing, which I've talked to a lot of people about, this notion of what the best woods for atlatls are. And I will always stand by my guns that there are no best woods for atlatls. Fundamentally, an atlatl doesn't have to undergo any of the rigors that a bow has to undergo. So there are really good woods, there are exceptional woods, and that is to say, there are woods which are forgiving of poor bow design. Likewise, there are also atlatls which are forgiving, or atlatl woods which are forgiving of poor atlatl design. However, generally speaking, all that you're really looking for is a piece of wood which will let you do that. You just need a piece of wood that's strong enough that when you apply a pretty good amount of force from both ends, that it flexes instead of shattering. If you have that, that's pretty much 9/10 of the battle. The next major consideration is that the wood should be hard enough that if you're going to use a self spur, that is like a basket maker atlatl, you know, where the spur is made out of the same material as the shaft. You want to make sure that the wood is hard enough, durable enough, that it's not really terribly easily dented with your fingernails, or else it'll kind of abrade away as you're throwing your darts with it. I've had that happen with the softest woods that I've used, like willow and willow and pawpaw. Those two have given me trouble. But other than that, pretty much just about any other wood will work. But the short answer to the question is, I like to use gamble oak because it's the traditional material that a lot of basket maker atlatls were made out of. I also like to use red oak. I like to use this is Tatarian honeysuckle, really strong stuff. This is actually probably my favorite atlatl. I like to use white ash. This is very flexy, strong stuff. It's really just tough as nails. And I also like to use just other woods, just random other woods. Like this is red elm. The color is not natural; it's stained with ochre. This atlatl, while it's made out of just red elm, which is generally considered a poor quality wood, this is my favorite atlatl to actually take out hunting and fishing, and I've killed more fish with this than any other fancier of my atlatls. And then, of course, when I'm using wood from the store, like if I'm just making up a whole bunch of atlatls, I like to use red oak and poplar boards. Those two are very inexpensive. You get them in the craft wood department at any lumber yard or good craft store, and that'll have you going. So basically, my natural woods like the honeysuckle and gamble oak and all those others, I travel out afield and cut them down myself. For Osage orange as well. That's a nice one as well. And then for my milled lumber, I like to use poplar and red oak. Now we're going to get on to the second part, which is how to heat bend an atlatl. Okay, so here is the method of heat bending. So you can do this over any heat source. You can do this over a heat gun, you can do this over a kerosene heater, you can do this over a campfire, you can do this over anything that produces heat. I've even done this in kind of electric steaming jigs, which I've made out of old electric skillets. So pretty much anything that makes heat. So you want to find a place above your heat source where it won't burn you immediately, like where you can kind of hold your hand for a little while. And then you're going to take your wood, this is poplar. You're going to go ahead and take your wood, and you're just going to keep moving it around. You just keep moving it back and forth in this heat. I don't actually know if I'm going to keep this entire section of the video. I might wind up editing it out just because it's going to take a little while to heat this up enough. But I will say, if you're using milled lumber or something like that, it's a good idea not to do your final sanding until after you do this heating. Because you can be really super careful and not char the wood at all. But that takes more effort. So what I like to do is just heat it up. Just get the wood hot. If it chars a little bit, it chars a little bit, and then I just I just deal with it. I just sand it off. So you basically just kind of get the wood to the point where it's just hot enough to bend. And this is something that you kind of get a feel for. My heat could afford to be a little bit lower, or I could have this a little bit higher, but in the interest of getting it going quickly. So then you just basically get it in the heat until you can start to really feel it following your bend. Like when you start applying tension, you'll know when the wood is bending. So this is starting to go. Yeah, you can really feel it when it starts going for good. So then, once you've bent it enough, and that's something that kind of comes from experience, and that's enough. Once you've bent it enough, just kind of hold it in that shape. Sort of hold it in that shape until it cools off. I'll actually put a little bit more bend in this one down near the handle, just because I enjoy to have a little bit of an upward curvature down in the handle as well. But insofar as a flex for the atlatl to be properly functional now, that is going to be perfect.